Hi everyone, it's Sarah. Welcome back to part 2. So we are fully dry. I've actually had this overnight drying. I apologise for the washing machine being on, but it's washing day and there's not a lot I can do, and I only have energy in the morning, so needs must. So I'm going to just do some really sort of bright, bold, beautiful background colours on here. I'm just going to wet the paper. Some water. And basically, where the masking fluid is, you're going to end up with it rejecting the water and the paper, and that's good. Just check you've got it covered and just let your paper soak in that colour for a little while. And I'm going to do sort of intense blues and greens on here. So I'm going to go in with a bit of Prussian blue, but it's a bit bright. Bit of Prussian blue, it's quite bright. So I'm just going to dull it down with a touch of magenta in there to make it a little bit more purple. I'll just take the edge off. I want it quite creamy, and I'm just going to go in with some beautiful, use my big mop brush, beautiful big strokes, and you can see how it just goes where it wants on the paper, and it's just beautiful. And what a lovely start. So I'm going to now drop in some turquoise. I've got some turquoise teal here, but you can easily just use the turquoise that's on your palette. Mix it in, and turquoise is opaque, so I have a nice contrast into here. And whilst it's wet, I can really sort of just work this background. I have a lot of fun. You can splash it, you can do whatever you want with it. A lot of fun. Just going to bring this down here, and then I'm going to add some viridian green into the mix, into that turquoise to get a really nice bright green colour. And I'm just having fun. You could use whatever colours you want. And I'm just putting some distant grasses on. Now, lots of different. I'm just going to add some more green into that mix. So still the blue tones. And then I'm just going to add some nice warm yellow into the mix as well, just to get a lighter yellowy green at the front. So this is a cadmium yellow that I'm using. add a little bit of Prussian blue into there. A bit more yellow. Prussian blue leans towards the green end of the spectrum, so you can do that. And we're just adding in, while it's damp, a few front grasses. So I'm just having fun. Add a little bit more blue into there to make it slightly thicker. Yellow. Lovely bright colours. And just letting the watercolour do its thing. So there we are, we're quite bright. Oops. And you guessed it, I'm going to grab a little bit of salt. Oh, first of all, I'm going to just, this is starting to dry, and I love when you get your spritzer bottle and when it's into a drying wash, you can spritz, and the little fine water droplets will add texture to the surface. This is too wet at the moment to do that. Ooh, that might have been a bit much, but I love that bit. And just around, I'm just going to add some indigo before it dries too much around some of these darker flower parts. And I'm just going to spritz them away and let them run into the wash. Because it's thicker paint, I can do this. I can just go in with thicker paint, it's fine. If it was thinner, you'd end up with lots of backgrounds. But I can do this because I like that. Go into this. I'm just working on a slight slope here today. I'm just going to go in with spritzer bottle, keep that going. I've got quite a lot of water on. It's running a little bit today. Just tilt it, let it run and do its thing. If it gets stuck somewhere and you think, oh, actually, I want it to run there, while it's wet, you can help it. Once it's drying, you need to leave well alone. I like that. Right, just help this come through here. I don't really want that line. And that's a really beautiful loose background. I'm just going to mop up some of this damp off the front. It's less to dry. And I'm just waiting for this to dry a little bit more before I can put some salt on. And I will go back in with my spritzer bottle and do some more spritzing on the surface. So I'll pause it because of the noise with the washer until I get back to you. Okay, so I've just paused that for probably about 3 or 4 minutes. This is starting to dry, the sheen's going off it, so I can do that little spritz again with my spritzer bottle. Oh, that was nice, that got some big bits. just to let it build a bit of texture. I quite like how these are already starting to look like stems. And then soon, once this has stopped pooling, I will put a little bit of salt across this front end. Actually, I might do it now because it's drying at different rates, just to see if we can get some nice salt effects, particularly in the grass area, but maybe a little bit up at the top as well. That will do. What do they say? Less is more. And we'll probably let this dry a little bit more, and then come back in with another spritz and let it dry naturally. So I'm just popped back on, it's drying nicely. So I'm just picking up my spritz bottle, and I'm just going to give it another spritz. You can see how the water's hit this one before. Just a gentle spritz into the drying wash, just adds a little texture. Let it sit for a little bit longer. We'll just keep building that texture up. So again, I'm going into my drying wash with my spritzer bottle. You can see how it's got some of the blooms are starting to work. Because basically you're putting tiny water droplets on. If you haven't got a spritzer bottle, just get your fingers in some clean water like this and just drop some little droplets of water on. And see what happens. But it's a beautiful technique to just build it up, and it helps all the granulation, all the separation. You've got some beautiful granulation coming. I'm just letting this one sit flat now. I'm no longer on my surface. Okay, and I'm just going to pause, let it do its stuff. So again, I'm back, it's drying, so I can do it again. I can just build up these little tiny droplets. Oh, that was a bit of a drip, never mind. Let it soak in and do its stuff. Again, if you've got one that you really don't like, you can get your thirsty brush, so that's a washed brush, take the water out, and you can just mop up little puddles, because as they're dry, they will just soak in. It's fine as long as your brush is clean and thirsty. One more spritz, I think. Just let that soak in. I just love the textures and the colours that it makes. Okay, so I've let it rest. I'm going to do one more. I said that last time, didn't I? But just one more into this drying wash. So I'm basically making little cauliflowers. You can see how the salt's worked beautifully. This is coming out beautifully. I'm just going to let it soak in. And it just has this tiny agitation then of the underneath. I'm just going to use my thirsty brush just to pick up this little bit of pigment. Take a little bit of pigment out of there. And now I'm going to let it dry totally. And I'll come back to you once it's totally dry. Okay, I'm back. Let me see if I can just zoom in for some little bits. There's some absolutely beautiful finishes of this background. It's really worth building up and just sort of letting the watercolour and the salt and the water do its thing. And these heavily pigmented colours that we chose are really useful for that. So I'm just going to zoom back out. Sorry if that was too quick. So now I've rubbed the salt off, and I'm just going to rub with my fingers and lift the masking fluid off to release the white paper. So I'm going to do that, but without you on. So here we are, we've rubbed it all off. Sometimes you can get a little bit of bleeding underneath, but that's fine. We can work with that. And now you can do your flowers and your butterflies, whatever colour you want. I'm going to leave these as the white daisies, but they have bright yellowy orange middles, so I'm going to put those on. And probably just some pale grey to just put some of the petals in the flowers on. So I will be grabbing my little number 4 brush for this because I think it'll be easier. But you could do these, I don't know, pinky purple would look nice, yellow would look really nice. You could just leave them with the white of the paper, that would look nice as well. Okay, so we're back. I've got my number 4. These are the sort of flowers that I've been thinking about. This is off Pixabay. It's a really useful resource, free images, and I want these little sort of ideas of the white petals, but if you look, they're not all white, they've got grey on them, but I want to accentuate this vibrancy of the yellow centre. So a bit like that one, it's really vibrant, it's got lots of detail in it, and obviously in the front I'm after more detail, and in the back I want less detail so that it's got a sense of depth, and also in the front I want more vibrancy, and I want the ones at the back to be less vibrant. So I'm going to start with these yellow centres, and I'm going to start with a cool pale yellow. And I'm going to just drop a little bit of yellow ochre in there just to take the edge off a little bit. So I just don't want it as vibrant. Plenty of water, so I'm going to go into the back ones, and I'm just going to drop a little blob into some of these back ones. same undertone on all of these. Obviously, if you are in a warmer climate or environment than I am, you can do these a little at a time. I'm in the UK, it's never warm. Well, sometimes in summer, but rarely warm. And it's winter, so I'm sat with my jumper on. Okay, I want to stay loose. So I've just washed my paintbrush out, and I'm just going to take off some of this heavy pigment now. It's soaked into the paper a little bit. Oh, I missed one there. Off some of these distant ones because I just want them to go into the background a little bit more. And just lifting off a little bit of pigment, just adds a little variety whilst we're here. Okay, so into this yellow, I'm going to just add a little bit of cadmium red, nice warm red, and I'm just going to drop some red into this mix around some parts, particularly the ones that have got some petals on. So just starting to build up a few layers in there. Take a bit more care over the ones at the front, and the ones towards the back can go a little bit less. I missed one. That one can be a bit more orangey. Okay, so I'm just going to let that dry. You can make it dry with a hairdryer if you want. We're fine now. Whilst that's drying, I'm just going to put a little light blue wash onto these. Actually, I might do a light green. I'll change my mind. Put a little bit of a emerald green with a tiny bit of cerulean blue in the mix, and plenty of water. So I've chosen that because it's a slightly different green. And a different blue. It's far too dark. It's better. So mainly water, and I'm just going to just touch some of these wing tips of the butterflies, because the cabbage whites are never just white. Just going in with a slightly darker mix there. Okay, so I'm going to mix a really light grey for the petal colour. So I'm going to use a cerulean, some yellow ochre, Only tiny, tiny amounts, and a little bit of alizarin crimson to make a fairly neutral grey, but it's quite warm. Again, plenty of water. If you want it bluer, you can just add a little bit more blue into the mix. If you wanted it greener, you could add some green. So alternatively, you can put a little bit of neutral tint in and maybe a little bit of blue, but you're after a really watery grey. Remember, in watercolour we build up from light to dark, so we're just going to, with a really light touch, put on some of the creases really in the petals, because each petal has got its own creases and tones and depth within it. And I quite like that they're like a chamomile daisy colour. So any light tone will give you that illusion really of shadows and folds on the petals. Remember, we're loose, so we're trying not to get too concerned and too worried about the different petals and tones. Just using a mixture of the bluey grey and a deeper grey. I might even put a little bit of yellow into this. So for some, you've got like a sunny grey colour. Any light colour, we'll just add a hint of petal. You can mix it up. That's just picked up a bit off the background. That mustn't have been quite right and dry, but that's fine as well. And I'm concentrating on these bigger petals first. And you can do these petals any colour you want. So if you wanted to be pinks and bright purples, you could do that. If you wanted them to just be white and leave them, you could do that. It's fine, it's your painting. You're going to do whatever you want. Oops, I think I picked up some blue there, but never mind, it'll dry. Because remember, watercolour dries lighter. And you can take your time doing these. It's just nice to put some texture on some of them, particularly the ones that are more in your face, that are nearer the front. So you get the idea, just a little bit of something. And sometimes a little bit of something just makes quite a big difference. A bit like our lives. So I'm doing heavier shadow because it's under that one. So just put a little bit of heavier shadow work on. Just going to drop some shadows into there. And then a change of tone because this is in the light. So they're near enough dry as you go along. You could just add a little bit of shadow tone into the left hand side of your flowers using the same colours, just to add a little bit of depth. And you'll see that they start to build. But it is a loose painting, so you don't want too much information and detail. You want the looseness of the painting to come through. Okay, so I'm going to mix quite a thick dark green, maybe a couple of greens. So I'm going to use some Viridian Green as my base. And I'm going to just add in a little bit of Phthalo Blue because I like that colour. And then I'm going to add some Lemon Yellow into there just to brighten it up. Maybe a little bit more Phthalo Blue. And then just to darken it, I'm just going to add a little bit of Payne's Grey. You could add a little bit of indigo into there. And I've got a nice thickish dark green. Just going to lift some of that over to here. And I'm just going to add a little bit more of that bright yellow into the mix. So I've got a different green, but it's related. So I'll start with that, move over. And then I'm going to do some more yellow into the mix. So I've got 3 tones of related greens. So starting with this lighter green, I'm going to take the excess off on my paper towel. And I'm going to start just putting some loose stems in for these distant flowers. And then I'm going to my mid-tone for my middle flowers. That should have been a dark tone. Just trying to pick up some. I might go in with a little bit of Dr. Martens on some of these little ones in the background. Yeah, I haven't decided. again, it's loose, so it's not about drawing all the stems in and getting them exactly right. It's about having that feel for where they are, that we've got some in, and we're starting to build up that sense of background without that foreground without ruining the background. Now I'm going to just get my big brush again, my big mop brush, and some of those greens on my mop brush. I'm just going to put on some ideas of leaves and different greens, but I don't want to obscure this beautiful background that we've spent so long creating. And again, you can do as much or as little as you want with that. I'm just going to put in some more. And I'm just using up the greens on my palette, just adding some depth in there, a little bit of tone, a little bit of change, building up. So we're going to mix quite a vibrant green, so Viridian green and that phthalo blue or Prussian blue, whatever's on your palette. So we're linking in now into the greens that are there, with the foreground being a bit brighter. Oops, well, that one's no longer there. You can do small ones or big ones. And I don't really want the leaves to say too much, because they're a secondary bit to the flower. So I'm now going to mix up quite a dark tone of either lamp black or whatever black you've got. Quite thick. If you haven't got black, you could use indigo. I'm going to just add a little bit of brown in there. So I'm basically mixing a very, very dark brown. Taking the excess off on my paper towel, and I'm just going to put a little bit of something for the base of these butterflies in, just so they see. And while it's on my brush, I might put some darker stems coming up and through. Trying to keep it loose. Was maybe a bit too much, so I'll just lift a bit off there. let it down a bit more. We're fine. Okay, so we're getting there. I don't want to overdo it and overfuss it, but I do want a shadow colour. So I'm going to mix some alizarin crimson, which is a beautiful colour, sort of a pinky colour, with some ultramarine, just to make a shadow colour. So the light's coming this way, so I'm going to drop some shadows under the petals on this side and under and around the base of these flowers here. So oops, just lift that one off because that's got a loop in front of it. Just building the shadows, the shadow side, the depth. Particularly on the big ones. And remember, we're just having fun. It's nothing too serious. It's not a still life painting competition. We're just having fun, adding some depth to some flowers. So don't worry. And your flowers can be simple and really effective. They don't have to reflect anything. And if you think, oh, I've got to put too much on, wet your brush, take the water off and just smooth it away a little bit. And if you think you didn't want that hard edge, you just wanted a softer edge, and just keep that. Oops, that moved. Just softening some really light into some of these little ones. And just building the darks and the shadows. Using our shadow colour of alizarin crimson and ultramarine. Just have to mix a little bit more because I've run out. And just build those shadows in and around. Just going to soften those away a little bit. And just work at them little by little. And the shadows just soften underneath and on top. Building a little bit of depth around them. Nothing too big, nothing too fussy.